my channel. My name is Allie if you're new here, and on my channel I post bookish, lifestyle, and personal development type videos. Today I'm very excited because we are doing a Shop My Shelves edition 5-star predictions. So these are all books that I currently own that I'm predicting to be 5 stars. Some of these I've owned for like a couple of years, some of them I've recently acquired. So I'm just gonna walk you through all of them, give you a brief description, tell you why I'm excited to read them, and why you should pick them up too. So the very first book on this list is Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Nunn. And I'm very excited to read this book. So in this world, 8 girls are chosen to serve the king, and they are made of paper. They're the paper girls. And this year there's a 9th girl, and she is made of fire. So this follows Lee as she is struggling with the trauma of her mom being taken away by guards, while she's also being hunted and taken away by guards herself because of her beauty. Follows her as she falls into love and has a forbidden romance that could potentially shift the entire world. And it follows her trying to make a decision on how much she's willing to risk to give these people the retribution and the justice that they deserve for what they've been putting in through. So I'm really excited to read this book. I definitely think it's going to be a 5-star read. It's beautiful. And I know that there's 3 books in the series out right now, so I definitely need to pick this one up so that I can continue on with the series because I'm very excited to read this. The next book on this list is one that I have owned for a very long time. I got this. This is one of the first books that I got, and this is The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. And this book follows Kvoth, and he is a young orphan, and it follows him as he's an orphan and as he's fighting crime on the streets and as he goes to a magic school. And then it also follows him as he's a fugitive after he kills the king and is the murderer. And he's just one of the most notorious wizards on the face of the earth, or on the face of this world. And I have always wanted to pick this up, and I've just never really gotten around to it. I know that it's high fantasy, and so it's going to be a very dense read, but I'm very excited to pick it up. So this is definitely one that I think is going to be 5 stars. Okay, this next book is one that I actually picked up at Barnes & Noble. It was on the Cafe $5 books. So if you don't know what that is, basically if you go to the Barnes & Noble Cafe and you buy a drink, you can get a book for $5. So it's like a normal, they're generally paperback. I've got a couple of them. But this is The Downstairs Girl by Stacey Lee, and I am very excited to read this book. So this takes place in the 1890s, and it follows Jo Kwan, and she is a lady's maid to the daughter of one of the most wealthy men in Atlanta. And she does this by day, but by night she's actually a writer for a advice column, and it's called Dear Miss Sweetie. And eventually this advice column gets very popular, and so she decides to use it for good and to address some of the social issues that are happening in her world. And there's some retributions that come from that, and so it's a matter of her trying to decide if she's willing to step out into the spotlight and say who she actually is, and face the retribution of what's happening because of her advice column. So this sounds so appealing to me, and just like the 1890s, it just sounds very good. So I definitely think this is going to be 5 stars, and I'm very excited to pick this up. Okay, this next one I'm sure everybody has heard of recently. This is one of my most recent books that I've picked up, and this is Finley, Donovan is Killing It. So this book follows Finley Donovan, and she's a single mom who is also a struggling author, and so she's really just kind of going through the thick of it. She's recently divorced, her husband fires the nanny, like a bunch of things happen that just really kind of put her into a spiral. And as she's an author, she's writing a suspense novel, and one day she's out at, I believe it's a coffee shop, maybe it's lunch, but she is out eating with her agent, and she's discussing the plot twist of her novel with her agent when a lady overhears her talking about the plot twist, and she takes it that she is a hit woman. So she hires her to be a hit woman. She gets wrapped up in murder, and murder trials and all sorts of things, and I just have heard such good things. Everybody that I've seen that's read this has loved it, so I definitely think that this is going to be a 5-star read. Okay, this next book is one that I have been meaning to pick up for quite some time. This is Misery by Stephen King, and I picked this up because I've never read a Stephen King book and I've always wanted to. I do know that he is kind of problematic, but I think that he has addressed that he's problematic, I'm fairly certain, just because he writes based off of like an older style. I don't know if there's problematic themes in this book specifically, but I am very excited to pick this up. So this follows Paul, and he's an author. He's a best-selling author, and he gets into a wreck or a car accident, and his body is shattered, and so his nurse Annie is taking care of him, and she is a rabid reader of his novels, and from what I understand, she didn't like the way that either the novel ended or a character died, and so she is holding him captive basically because he ruined her view of the way that the book was supposed to be written, I guess. So this sounds fantastic. I love books written about books, and I think that this is just going to be very interesting, terrifying. The reason why I've decided that recently that this is actually going to be a 5-star read is I was talking to my boyfriend's mom and his grandma, and I asked them what their favorite Stephen King book was, and they both said Misery, and so I was like, well, I already own this one, so I might as well read it. So Misery is one that I definitely think is going to be a 5-star read. Okay, the next one on this list is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. This book follows Star, and she is just living her life. She grew up in a poor neighborhood, lives in a poor neighborhood, but she goes to a very prestigious high school. And one day, her and her best friend Khalil are walking, and he gets fatally shot by a policeman. And so this follows her as she's navigating her best friend being murdered, and his murder being a national headline. And people are calling him somebody who's involved with gangbangs and drug dealing and gang leading and all of these things, and she's the only one who can actually tell anybody what actually happened. However, doing that, she's going to have to deal with the consequences of what's going to come from that. So it sounds absolutely heartbreaking. It sounds it just sounds like a fantastic read. I'm sure that this is going to be absolutely heartbreaking to read, but I'm very excited to pick this up, and I absolutely think this is going to be a 5-star read. Okay, this next book is my most recent Book of the Month book, and I honestly am going to do a really bad job of explaining this to you because every time I read this synopsis, I just get more confused. It sounds fantastic, but I really have no idea how this book is going to play out. So this is Small Angels, and this is by Lauren Owen. And this book follows the main character, Kate, and she is brought back to her hometown because her sister is getting married. Growing up, she befriended a group called the Gone Sisters, I believe is what it's called. And they had a lot of secrets, and I don't know if it's like demonic worshiping, like Satan worshiping. That's the vibe I get, but I don't know that that's actually what it is. But I know that it's paranormal, there's ghosts. But she befriends these sisters, and she finds out their secrets, and she gets away from it, and then she comes back, and she has to reconnect with Lucia, who was not only one of the Gone Sisters, but is also her first love. So I just feel like this is going to be very entertaining. Like I said, it's got paranormal aspects, and I haven't really read a good paranormal thriller book. So I'm really, really excited to pick this up. Plus, it's always a plus when I get through my Book of the Month books. So I think this is going to be five stars, and I'm actually hoping to get to this really soon. Okay, this next book is one that I've had for quite some time, and it is The Whisper Man by Alex North. This book follows a man and his son, and they live in a town that had a serial killer. I believe it was like 20 years before, and the serial killer was captured, but there's some things that are starting to happen again. So the original serial killer, from what I understand, is in jail, but there's some things that are just like starting to resemble the original killings again. And so this follows the man and the son as they're kind of wrapped up in that, and the serial killer, his way of getting people out of their house is to stand by their windows and whisper and lure them out of their houses. And eventually the son has whispering in his window. So it sounds really interesting. Abigail's Cup of Tea is actually the person who recommended this book that made me want to pick it up, and she said that this was fantastic. So I'm really excited to read this, and this is definitely going to be a fall read for me this year. Okay, this next book is one that I'm really excited about, and it's a third book in a series, so I'm just going to describe the first book to you because this is the one that I'm going to pick up next, but obviously I don't want to give any spoilers for the first two books. So this is Hollowpox. This is the third book in the Nevermore trilogy, and that's the Trials of Morrigan Crow. And the first book, Nevermore, follows Morrigan as she is a cursed child, and she dies or is presumed dead. I think it's on like her 11th birthday. Don't count me on that, that could be wrong. But she's around that age, and she gets swooped away to this magical land called Nevermore. And she is entered into a contest to become a part of the prestigious Wondrous Society. And that's the only way that she's going to be able to stay in this town where her town of, like, her homeland believes her to be dead. And it's very, like, magical. It's obviously the magical school aspect, and she lives in a hotel that the hotel like changes, so her room changes around a lot, and there's a giant cat that's literally like an elephant-sized cat that is involved with it, and yeah, that's the cat. But the first two books were fantastic, and I have owned this for a year and haven't picked it up yet, and that's just unacceptable. So I'm going to be picking this up soon, but this is definitely one that I think is going to be a 5-star read. And then this last book is one that I'm very excited about, and I have started this and I put it down because I was kind of in a reading slump, but I'm finally starting to feel like I'm in the place where I can read this again, and that is Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. I've never read a Brandon Sanderson book before, but I've done a lot of research into like where to start, and everything that I've read says to start here, and I am very, very excited to pick this up. So this story is basically what happens when the heroes lose and the villain wins. So this book follows Vin, and she is a young girl, she's an orphan, who basically has been brought up to believe that you can't trust anybody. And then it also follows Kelsier, and he is a criminal, and he just got out of jail, he's a thief, but he's also a fantastic leader. And Kelsier gets together this group of allomancers, and they are like the magical people of this world. And their goal is to take down Dark Lord, and this book sounds fantastic to me. When I read it the first time, or not read it the first time, but when I started reading it, I got 85 pages in, and it was already so good. I just was not in a good like reading headspace when I was reading it, but this is definitely one I'm going to pick up soon, and I definitely think I'm going to give this 5 stars. I'm very excited to pick it up. So that being said, those are the 10 books that I personally own that are on my shelves that I am planning on reading shortly that I anticipate to be 5 stars. Please comment down below what your most anticipated 5-star reads are, and also comment a book emoji, because obviously we're talking about books and that just seems relevant. So comment down below a book emoji if you have finished this video, and I cannot wait to talk to you guys in my next video. Gotta love the train. Wow. Oh my God.